It now brings me great pleasure to introduce today's speakers with the Aloha Tree Alliance. So despite my youthful appearance and extensive cosmetic surgery, I'm actually a lot older than I appear, and I've been working in conservation for quite a long time. And because of this longevity, I somehow thought I was already aware of all the people and programs involved with invasive species and conservation in the islands. I was therefore pleasantly surprised to learn about the work of the Aloha Tree Alliance after reading a recent Community Voice article in Civil Beat with the title, Turning the Tide Against Hawaii's Invasive Species, and thinking, wow, this writer of this article really gets it. Who is this person? How come I never heard of her? But because we were in the middle of planning for HISAM, I thought this would be a great opportunity to reach out to the Aloha Tree Alliance and invite them to present and share more about the great work they are doing. And fortunately for us, they were kind enough to agree. So I'd now like to introduce you to Tara Morisato, Program Manager for the Aloha Tree Alliance and the writer of that excellent Civil Beat article. Tara is a lifelong admirer of native species and the community bonds that can form around protecting them. She was born and raised in Hawaii Kai and is very excited to give back to the forest she grew up with and to continue learning about its inhabitants. She recently graduated from UC Irvine with a BA in political science and a minor in biological sciences, and some of her favorite activities include reading, crafting, and hiking. Along with co-presenting with Tara today is Eli Livezey, Field and Nursery Manager with ATA, a job title that makes me extremely jealous and miss my old work with Haleakala National Park. Eli is dedicated to conservation and wants to work towards a future where ecological values are more integrated into our daily lives. Previously having worked for the National Park Service, like me, Kupu, and other nonprofits, Eli brings a diverse set of experience to the ATA team. He is passionate about restoration. He believes biodiversity is the key to resilient ecosystems, and he also enjoys rock climbing, backpacking, and free diving. All skills which sound great for a field manager. So with all of that introduction, I will like to now hand it off to Tara and Eli to tell us about the great work that the Aloha Tree Alliance is doing. And if you have any questions for them, after the presentation, there will be time to answer those. So please feel free to share those and we will get to them after the talk. So please take it away, Tara and Eli.
Thank you, Chuck. We're so excited to be here today. So I'm Tara.
I'm Eli.
And I'll tune into our presentation right now. Okay, so Aloha Tree Alliance is based in Kuliʻouʻou. We're restoring the Kuliʻouʻou Ridge Trail on East Oʻahu. And we've been at it for about 5 years now. This is a very popular hiking trail that many of you probably know about already. It's popular for residents and visitors alike. So it's well known, well used, and also in great need of stewardship. We operate on the land owned by the Department of Forestry and Wildlife. So we work with them on consulting for our restoration strategies and educating hikers and also just selecting plants for our restoration. So before I get into it, I want to go over this little quote that aligns with the work we do very much. It's from Puanani Burgess, and she was a Hawaiian sovereignty activist. And the quote goes, "If you plant for 1 year, plant kalo. If you plant for 10 years, plant koa. And if you plant for 100 years, teach the children." So I think it just speaks to our future-minded approach when we're doing restoration work, because restoration work never really is about benefiting yourself in the present. It's about making the world better for the future, for yourself in the future, as well as your descendants, your neighbors and friends, and the plants and animals that live in Hawaii. So Aloha Tree Alliance is a 501c3 nonprofit. And like I mentioned, we've been working on the Kuliʻouʻou Ridge Trail since 2020. And it was founded primarily to work on the issues of trail erosion, unsustainable hiking practices, and invasive species all for the purposes of bringing forest resilience, watershed stability, and community health. So it was also meant to be a place where community can be built, because Kuliʻouʻou Valley has a lot of families that have been there for generations. It's a very close-knit community already, and greater Mauna Lua area can have ATA as a place to work together on something for the common good, and also to just get outside and learn things about the environment around them. So here are the 4 main projects that we have in Aloha Tree Alliance, and I'm going to turn it over to Eli to talk about 2 of those.
Yeah, thanks, Tara, for a great intro. A lot of our restoration work, that's the bulk of our programming, is active restoration. We do it with the help of our wonderful volunteers. All of our restoration work is centered around water. The Kuliʻouʻou Valley is right at this point in a drought. It's very, very dry. We want to really build a sustainable watershed. So we do our restoration not only for native plants, but for erosion control and aquifer recharge. And one of the ways that we are going to be doing that, hopefully to the highest standards we can, is by collecting seeds from the surrounding ridges and forests. We will be able to select genetics that are local to Kuliʻouʻou. So we'll be doing that. That'll have 2 advantages. One, the adaptations, hopefully for those selected seeds, will be set up to be as prosperous as possible for that area. But it'll also help promote biodiversity within species. So as many of you guys probably know, there's lots of biodiversity within Hawaiian native plants, lots of endemicism, lots of unique species, but we really want to promote biodiversity within species as well. We're planting about 22 different species right now, so we just want to have that be as healthy as we can.
And like Eli said, all of this is powered by our community volunteers. So we work with a variety of groups, really anyone who is interested in learning about stewardship or getting outdoors. We've had mainly our community of East Oʻahu residents, but also residents from around the island. We work with schools, businesses, and social groups like hiking clubs, one of which is the Honolulu Hiking Club that we have an ongoing partnership with. And we also, within working with schools, we try to give them special experiences in the field through our education program. So within our education program, we do field trips to the Kuliʻouʻou Ridge Trail, as well as classroom presentations on their campuses. And we try to give them a lot of hands-on activities to just be more in tune with the world around them, especially since we spend so much time on our screens nowadays, especially in schools. So getting the students outside and learning with all of their senses is a really important part of it. We work with students from kindergarten through college. So we have a variety of lessons that we adapt to different grade levels. And we also try to encourage mentorship through our high school internship program called ʻāina Allies. So that one is a relatively short internship program, but it's meant to be accessible for high school students to really just get their first steps in conservation and explore what it could be like to be not just a volunteer, but also a bit of a leader in the restoration space. And for these lessons that we teach to them, as well as our other students that come on the trail, we try to teach about plant ID, restoration techniques in Kuliʻouʻou. We teach them how to kilo, to observe the world around them at a deeper level, and to also just instill values of stewardship that will last as they grow up. So the goal is not to simply make everyone into a career conservationist, but to make sure that everyone, no matter what direction they take, keeps ideas of stewardship and mālama ʻāina in their heads, and that they continue to think about it as they get older throughout their lives. So for these pictures, we have at the top our ʻāina allies who just completed their certification this past Saturday at our community workday. And then at the bottom left, we have a group of students learning about our biocontrol efforts on strawberry guava. And then on the right, we have a student from Halau Kumana planting ʻaʻaliʻi with us in one of our restoration areas. So now we've engaged over 900 students in the past 5 years, and we work with schools from across Oʻahu, so that includes public, private, and charter schools. So one question is, why Kuliʻouʻou? Like, why is this valley special, and why was it specifically chosen for a restoration project? And a big part of it is just that this valley is really rich in history. It was settled by Hawaiians for around 1,000 years before Western contact even. And so it has a lot of really important cultural sites, such as the Elilupe Pond, which was reserved for the ali'i to relax in. It also has, it leads down into some of the last remaining freshwater springs on Oahu. So that would be Canopy Spring. And that one is being actively restored, but it's one of the last few that could even be restored at this point. So we want to make sure that what we do in the mountain area up Mauka is healthy for those sites at the coast. And it also is home to some of the earliest signs of human settlement in Hawaii. There's tons of stories about which is the real earliest site, but Kuliʻouʻou has some very, very old remnants of humans eating and making things. So we want to preserve that area. And I'll hand it over to Eli now to talk about the more recent history.
Yeah, so part of the foundation of Aloha Tree Alliance was based on our founders, Michael and Arlena Livingston. They spent a lot of time out on that trail, and they saw it over many, many years degrade, and that degradation accelerating with the use of social media. So they really wanted to do something about it. One of those big things was trail cuts and erosion, people not necessarily hiking the most pono. So that's what they started building fencing to stop those trail cuts. And then they started focusing on native outplantings to help hold in those slopes that can be really steep at times. So there's all of that popular use. The trail gets thousands, tens of thousands of hikers every year. So it's a very popular trail. It's very visible restoration work. And we think it's a great opportunity to build a native corridor demonstration garden so that people can really see, garden or restoration, see what it's like to be in that native forest. Another big reason is we've got lots of partners, and so we work together really ridge to reef. So we really want to build that watershed, make it as healthy as we can. Our native plants help promote that aquifer recharge that I've mentioned a few times. And so we really try to connect everything back to the watershed.
And also, I know the word watershed, it's been thrown around a lot. So just in case anyone's not familiar, it refers to the general area of land that water flows through. So for us, that just means from Mauka to Makai, basically. And knowing that the water flows from one place to another, that it's all connected, we also realize in our work that we cannot just work isolated in silos. So getting connected with our partners like Mālama Mauna Lua, which is working to restore directly in the ocean in Mauna Lua Bay with coral outplantings and invasive limu removal. We work with them a lot on just collaborative events and outreach, and also even some grants. So it's great to have partners like that who have been working at this even far longer than we have. We also have other partners like Livable Mauna Lua Hui in various areas around East Oʻahu. And we partner with our schools, of course, to bring them to different sites around Mauna Lua. So sometimes we'll bring them not only to the Kuliʻouʻou Ridge Trail, but down to Canopy Spring with Mauna Lua Fish Pond Heritage Center, or to Mauna Lua Bay to learn the entire connected network of ecosystems here, because the land is not separated by a wall from the sea after all. We also try to connect with hikers in general, because one of the advantages of our site is that even though it's very well traveled and often degraded, it also gets so much more viewership and and exposure just from hikers looking at our signs or seeing the plants growing in the restoration sites. So we try to bring them on as volunteers, and a lot of our regular volunteers only found out about us by hiking the trail and stumbling upon the sites. So it's been really great to build partnerships with people even when they least expect it.
Yeah, and then another big reason why we have chosen Kuliʻouʻou Valley is because over the last 1,000 years, it's had a lot of different stewardship. Obviously, Native Hawaiian stewardship, and much more recently, Western stewardship with an emphasis on cattle. So there was a lot of clear cutting that had happened historically, a lot of areas that were switched over to pasture. And then about 100 years ago, many people might know about this, but our aquifer really dried up. Our wells dried up from aggressive pumping, but also from a lack of groundwater recharge. So when all those trees stopped being or were clear cut, we lost that groundwater recharge. So we're really trying to improve that past the invasive forest that was introduced as kind of a band-aid. We're really trying to strengthen that with native species. But yeah, so those invasive species, they come with a lot of risks. They're ecological, but also cultural. So by having a healthy native forest, cultural practices can continue in a traditional way, and that's very valuable. Also, there are the ecological risks. First and foremost in a lot of our minds right now is fire. California grass and strawberry guava are both big fire risks. California grass goes through cycles where it will die back naturally and leave big sections of perfect tinder. So we really try to remove those things. And strawberry guava has lots of resin. It burns really hot and fast. So those things can all be ladder fuels, fuels that allow the fire to get up into the upper canopy. Once fire is in an upper canopy, it's a lot harder to control. So while we're doing restoration and trying to build these spaces for people to experience native forest, we're also trying to build fire resiliency into the ecosystem with green breaks that will hopefully slow down fire if it ever does occur. Another risk of invasive species is just direct replacement of native habitat. A lot of species do not play fair. They've got allelopathic chemicals in their leaves that they drop that prevent other plants from growing. They grow really dense. Their roots really are quite surface level. So even though, a hillside with strawberry guava is covered with plants, it's not really being held in, and it's not really preventing things like landslides from happening. All of those things tie into water. So erosion, trail safety, drinking water, all of those things tie together. The more biodiverse we can have our ecosystems, the more resilient they'll be, and the better our health of our whole watershed will be.
So this is just a cool picture from one of our restoration work days. It shows ATA's founder, Arlena, working to teach the volunteers how to plant properly. So we use kind of a very meticulous planting style. It includes around 5 steps or something, with digging the hole, checking the hole, adding fertilizer, adding water storing crystals to encourage water retention, and then adding the plant in and watering. So we want to be really careful and encourage the best survivorship possible from our native plants. So also I like this photo because it shows the various different age groups that we have on the trail. We have volunteers as young as toddlers who kind of just run around exploring things, and we have even people in their 70s and 80s who come out, and everyone has a role to take on the trail depending on how much they want to do or how much they want to help lead other volunteers around. So it's been really great to work with such a diverse community and get different perspectives on what Hawaii used to look like and what Hawaii should look like.
So there's a lot of different restoration styles. The restoration style we use, we call the kīpuka restoration style. That is a kīpuka is a term that right now is most relevant on Big Island along Saddle Road. There'll be sections of really dense, lush native forest that are surrounded by more recent lava flows. So those kīpuka, when they're in those lava fields, allow natural seed recharge to go out, be wind propagated by native birds, out into those lava fields. So things like ohia, a'ali'i, kupu-kupu are some of the first species to go out and revegetate those zones. So we try to really apply that mentality to our restoration. So we kind of view the invasive zones as the kind of desolate appearing lava fields, and then we want our restoration sites to then bleed into each other and combine to create that corridor that I mentioned earlier. But the contrasting method that we've seen a lot of other groups use is clear cutting. And that has, each have their pros and cons, but in our dry forest, we really want to conserve our canopy that allow our species to get established. So that shade canopy really allows things to get a strong footing. We don't get very much rain. Our water is our most precious resource, and we have lots of rain catchments that go up the hill. But we really want to build kind of a nursery at each site. And then as they mature, we'll take down that invasive canopy and replace it with our native species. So here is kind of a methodology page. Here's our site. If you look down at the bottom of that map, there's an orange square, orange shape. That's where that is. So if you come out, you'll definitely see this restoration site. Our process, like I said, is to kind of go through, clear out some of the more aggressive invasives, and then we want to leave some shade trees so that each square meter of our site gets full sun at some points of the day and some shade. So we get a balance of different conditions. And then you can also see on our map, we've got sections where it is solid. So those solid sites are where we have active restoration. This does need to get updated a little bit. We've expanded since then. But and then the crosshatched areas are where we're planning on clearing. So we've got work to do, but most of our sites are consolidated within the first mile of the trail. You can see that purple site up there. That's about at the 1 mile mark. So we are really proud of how accessible our restoration area is. A lot of restorations, especially on state land, tend to be in pretty remote areas. And that comes with a lot of advantages. But I think it's really cool to have such a visible site.
Yeah, and along those lines, it helps with our community engagement too, because of course, most people in their 70s do not want to be hiking into remote areas of the forest. But if they can help out at our lower sites where it's less than half a mile of walking, and they can still have so many different jobs to do, then it's a great time.
Yeah. And if I could just add one more thing about our restoration, we really want to build in the layers of the forest. So that's a term that we use, but we want to build a really healthy canopy. So we're growing trees that will establish an upper canopy, shrubs that will kind of fill in a mid canopy zone like a'ali'i, and ground covers. So all of those layers help contribute to avoiding evaporative loss of water so that all the rainwater we do get actually gets a chance to get in the ground. So by the end of this planting season, we had our last big community work day. We've got one more small planting day. We're very near getting over 7,000 plants in the ground as our organizational number. And we've engaged with over 3,000 volunteers in that time. So we're looking forward to many more years of restoration work. Here's some nice photos of healthy lolu palms and ohia. We really want to make our forest sustainable. We're out there every Friday at this point, going out and watering our more recent outplantings. But the long term would be that it is self-sustaining and sustainable without human hands maintaining it every step of the way. But humans being in these forests is absolutely important and an essential aspect of a community forest.
And with all of that being said, we want to make sure that humans not only restore this environment, but they have a long-lasting dedication to caring about it, not just in 2025, the year of our community forest, but just for the rest of our lives. We hope that people will continue to appreciate these places and see them get better as time goes on. So with that being said, here are some ways that anyone can get involved. So like Eli said, every Friday morning, we're out there watering and maintaining our restoration sites. We water the younger seedlings so that they can become self-sustaining eventually. And then on the third Saturday of every month, we have a larger community work day. So during the wet season in Hawaii from October to April, that means we do planting. And then in the drier season, which starts this month until around September, we focus more on clearing and general maintenance. But there's always room to help out. So we would really love to see you on the trail. And then another thing you can do is donate if you feel comfortable. And the last thing I would want to recommend is to spread the word about ATA's restoration and really just any restoration movements that you see in the area, because Mauna Loa has a lot going on. It seems like it's kind of blossoming with how many different groups of activists there are in this area protecting different little spots. So getting more exposure and more people out there helping is what we really hope for out of all of this.
And if I could just plug one thing while we're talking about volunteers, our nursery is gaining operation. It should be operational by the end of June, and we'll be looking for people on island with growing experience who might want to help out at that space as a volunteer.
And then I'm just showing this same quote again. So hopefully it means something a little different now with all the context of the last few minutes. And also the picture is a native koa tree. So you can see the young leaflets turning into phyllodes as it gets older, these sickle-shaped leaves, which are actually stems, actually. So mahalo nui for attending our presentation. We really appreciate your time and hope to see you out there one day. And feel free to put any questions in the chat too.
I was just going to second that. Mahalo nui, Tara and Eli, that was outstanding. And, based on how wonderful your website has been designed, I had a feeling your work was going to be really inspirational, and you definitely didn't disappoint. So, yeah, that is really cool, the work you're doing there. And I know I have like a ton of questions of my own, and I could just start jumping in and barraging you with them, but I'm going to give an opportunity for any of the participants to submit any questions they might have in the chat before I do that. But while we're waiting for that, I did want to ask, Eli, you'd mentioned your concerns about fire, which is obviously like a huge concern throughout the state, especially like given recent events and all the work you're doing to try to reduce those fuels that carry fire. Have there been any like fires recently anywhere in or within the vicinity of your projects?
Not that I'm aware of. There have been fires on Oahu, small ones that have been controlled by state firefighters predominantly, but nothing in our valley. No real risks. We don't get that much lightning as we're a little bit lower elevation than the peak of the Ko'olaus. But we're of course on the watch for these things.
Yeah, I would imagine like the fireworks situation too can also make you a little bit on edge every New Year's and on 4th of July.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess a benefit of our rain catchments is we've got all of these IBC totes. They're about 275 gallons of water scattered throughout, and the state knows where those are. So hopefully, in the event of an emergency, those things can be useful as well.
Okay, well, I don't see any questions in the chat yet. Let me just make sure that there's nothing in the Q&A. So if you don't mind, I was going to ask another one. You talked about like hikers kind of, cutting, making cuts that increase erosion and that putting up fencing and restoring some of those sites to hold in the soil. Are there any issues with ungulates in your area, pigs or goats, or is that not an issue on that side?
I think, well, further back in the valley, there's hunting permitted, and people do go back there and harvest pigs, and we don't have too many goats in that area, but uh, we have been really fortunate. We have had almost no pig damage. I think our area is so filled with humans that they really like to avoid us. So that is one advantage. Yeah, so we actually have seen some natural regeneration, not so much outside of our kīpuka at this point, but certainly within. Peely grass has been one that has been really reliable in terms of natural regeneration. And if people aren't familiar, there's a really awesome mechanism that those seeds have for putting themselves in the ground. When it rains after they've been spread out, the tail that's attached to the seed, yeah, the dance, they'll spiral themselves into the ground. So those have been particularly reliable, and a lot of our ʻAʻaliʻi that we've been planting originally have had set seed a handful of times. We've got some remnant native species like Aloha that are having seeds on the trail. So I think for 5 years in, we're doing pretty well.
I've also noticed that a few of our carrots, our ground cover species, have started generating seeds, and our iliae are almost constantly blooming. So
Yeah,
I feel like it's only a matter of time before they really start sending up their keiki everywhere.
yeah, great question. That's a fun one.
Well, I'm a plant nerd, and I'm interested in all of the things that you're growing, outplanting. And I also had a question about as far as like naturally occurring species that are in the area. Are there any like rare, threatened, or endangered plants that you're trying to protect or outplant or increase their numbers within your site?
Well, right now our permit and our relationship with the state has us working mostly with common species. But very soon we will be starting a partnership with the state. We'll be starting planting. We've done the clearing work for the Hawaiian hardwoods program. So that is a long-term vision to allow cultural practitioners to go in and harvest hardwoods from the forest. So we'll go in and we'll plant koa and many other species. And in that area, while we're waiting for those trees to mature, 60, 80 years, there'll be more endangered species planted in there. So I think that is going to be a really great site. It's within about 100 feet of asphalt. And so I think that's going to be a really accessible site for people to see those endangered plants and to go harvest those hardwoods.
And further up the mountain, like far beyond our restoration areas where it's more of a native forest a little bit, there are quite a few native species that are important to the Hawaiian forest. Like there's a few ohia trees along the trail, some ia, and a ton of uluhe, which is on my shirt. We also have various native animals. There's not too many due to the human activity, but we've seen elepaio on the trail. So having native plants
Yeah,
down.
and Amaki'i.
Oh yeah, having native plants down below, especially growing back the native canopy, will encourage these birds to hopefully come down lower and be more comfortable across the valley.
Yeah.
I had one more question, like a personal question for both of you, and apologies if I might have missed this in your introduction. How have both of you been involved with Aloha Tree Alliance since its beginning, or how long have you both been working?
We've both been working here for about a year now. Yeah. So ATA
Yeah.
has done a lot of growth recently.
And as
Okay.
far as the student volunteers or the classes that you've taken, did they been coming since the beginning, or is that a more recent development as well?
I think they started the education field trips about a year or two into it. So around 2021, 2022. And that first year, 2020, was mainly for getting everything together and starting on the trail remediation. But yeah, we have some pretty strong relationships now with local schools, like Kaiser, Punahou, Halakumana, even Kamuki Middle recently. So it keeps on growing, and that's been really nice.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be able to see the benefits of that when these graduates of your volunteer program start to return as young adults. I'm
Yeah,
sure they will.
yeah, it's pretty remarkable, especially since young kids, like they're kind of sponges and you don't expect them to absorb everything, but they kind of do sometimes.
Well, that's why the beginning and ending quote you started and ended your presentation with is so appropriate. So
Mhm.
I think I don't see any more questions. So I just wanted to say again how grateful I am, and we all are, that you agreed to present and to learn more about your project. And I, for one, even though I'm a Big Island resident, I'm going to make it my goal to come out and volunteer and check out your site. I want to get into that side of the island. It's been years since I've hiked up the trail, and I probably wouldn't even recognize it now with all the awesome work you guys have been doing. So thank you so much for presenting, and for the attendees of the webinar, and you want to catch a recording of this again, it should be posted in the not too distant future on the HISAM YouTube page. And again, I encourage you to visit the site to check out all the other great upcoming presentations, volunteer events, and including an award ceremony we have next Wednesday. So Tara and Eli, mahalo nui again for a wonderful presentation. And I look forward to seeing you both out in the real world on the trail where I can get my hands dirty.
Hello, that
Mahalo,
would be great.
and mahalo everyone who joined to watch.
Yes, thank you.